When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gain, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Manifest It Now. I'm here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gain.
And our topic today is going to be a good one. We're going to talk about how to manifest something bigger than you can imagine.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited. What else are you excited about, Cass?
What am I excited? I'm excited about just like timing and things coming together and things opening and just the evolution of things. It's fun.
That's awesome. I was wondering if you're excited about, you guys can't hear it, but there's like loads of happy kids screaming in the background and it's amazing.
I am excited about that. My niece is here and then my nephew got here this morning and they're just like loving being with each other and hanging out and of course being in the pool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel the same thing. I feel really excited about this time in life for the things coming together. I said to Lisa literally, it was maybe 3 days ago, that I think I'm the happiest I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. And happy isn't like, it's not enough of a word to explain that, the essence of that feeling, but it's like the most satisfied, the most fulfilled, the most amazing. It's like all of those words in one. I just used happy, but I was like, it feels so amazing to be here. Yeah, it was so nice.
It does. Oh man, can I share something that you shared about yesterday with our listeners though? But like Jenny also told me like, oh, but I had a little like, she was, I don't know, I think you used the word cranky, like at some point yesterday, right?
Yes.
And so I think it's perfect because, first of all, we just talk about it like a fact. It's not, we don't like dive into it. But also it's so like, I just want to make that point that you just shared, like I am the happiest I've ever been. It is amazing. Everything is awesome. And there are still like blips because we're human.
Yeah.
And so you can be overall amazing. And when you have one feeling that isn't that same feeling, I don't want to use the word alignment there, but like, isn't that like, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means you're still living your life and things come up. But when your intention is this overall amazing feeling and you're basing it on this overall, this totally ties into our topic, this overall thing versus kind of evaluating it on a moment by moment basis, you're going to get further.
Yeah. I really have formed this like really deep appreciation for the things that, or how the uncomfort is adding to my experience. So maybe a week ago, we were biking and we were having this very uncomfortable conversation about family. And we were both very aware that it was important and it needed to happen. And we weren't, we were getting out of our own way in terms of sharing how we felt without diving into ego or being offended at different things and being vulnerable to say things that were uncomfortable. And it was just so respectful. And it was an uncomfortable conversation, but it added, you could feel how it was adding to the depth and to our connection and to that feeling of fulfillment. Like that is a part of certainly what I'm creating in my life, but I think what a lot of people are creating as well is that depth of connection in their lives.
Absolutely. And I couldn't like agree more. Those uncomfortable moments or the moments where it feels like it's not perfect or it's not awesome or it's hard, like are the things that create this beautiful, rich tapestry that feels amazing.
Mm-hmm. And you do get to a place where you know that in the middle of it, like it doesn't feel wrong, or it feels perfect in the middle of it. And I talk about that a lot with my clients, is like, there's perfection in this moment and there's perfection in this. And you begin to feel that in it. which is super
Yes.
cool.
Oh, totally. That is the best. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that feeling because it's simultaneously like feeling whatever, which often doesn't feel good, right? If you just want to, even just labeling discomfort, like, is enough. Like, but at the same time, there's this other simultaneous feeling of like, but this is so good.
Yeah. I also feel really excited. I don't know if you guys saw my Instagram story, but I started painting the camper. So that was really exciting time.
I'm really excited. I'm like, oh, I love this project that she's doing.
Yeah, I know. So where do you want to start with our topic today?
Where do I want to start? Oh, have we said what our topic is?
Yeah, how to manifest bigger than you can imagine.
Right. So, I mean, I could just start with what I told you when this topic came up, which was, I think that's the only way to do it. Like, or I think that's if I'm going to say there's a right way, the best way. Thank you. I didn't want to say right. It's the best way to manifest is by manifesting something bigger than you can imagine. And I mean, I go back to this a lot, but for me, that was financial freedom. Like I mean, it was bigger. Like I could imagine it, but it was bigger than I could imagine, really.
And I think kind of like encompassing in that question of bigger than you can imagine is more of like bigger than you can believe almost is simultaneous. Like that because we actually can't manifest bigger than we can imagine, but right? Because we have to have some essence of connection to it. So we can only go as far as the limits of our mind can take us, as our imagination can take us. That's why it is so essential to get out of what you think is possible, get into the imagination. Because as we talk about imagination, it's like getting into that area where we don't think where we don't believe. It's like almost like beyond what's possible in a way, just like fun. To me, imagination is like, oh, that's fun to think about. I'm not trying to get there.
Yes. And so I'm going to add, just to helping our audience, like another way to say this might be like, how to manifest bigger than you can see how can happen.
Yes.
Which even though we're not supposed to be looking at the how, that is often where but I don't see how that could happen. And so often, I think this is where people get stuck is they're like, oh, I'm only going to ask for what I can see happening. I'm not going to ask for what's beyond what I can see how it can happen, which is bigger in a moment than you can imagine. And the cool thing is like what you said, Jen, we do have to be able to imagine it, but you can instantaneously do that, right? Like what's bigger than I can imagine right now? Oh, this. Right? Immediately it comes when you ask that question. It's not like we have to go searching or it has to be really hard to open up that portal. Like it's just being open and asking the question and being willing to imagine and see it.
I think that's one of the keys to this is it is easy to imagine, or it can be easy. It can be easy to stretch your imagination, to expand your imagination. Sometimes if we think we have to believe it first, that will get us tripped up because it's not as easy to shift a belief, but it is easy to shift and expand imagination. Okay, what about this? Okay, what about this? And like anything, you will find that the more you explore, you are led to more and more ideas. This is how the law of attraction works. So if you think about an idea that is on one level, law of attraction is going to respond with another idea along that same level or expansion or bigness or funness or whatever it is. So that is an amazing place to play, right? An exploration of that imagination.
Yes. I love it. And it's that exploration that is how you manifest something beyond, right? Is you stay in the play and you stay in the exploration and out of the how.
Yes. So that would be our first step. So if you're looking to manifest something bigger than you can imagine, the first thing is being willing to play and explore in that imagination. So just keep it that simple. Like don't try to go beyond this at all. Don't try to think how much should I imagine, how long should I imagine, what should I imagine about. Just go imagine and let that be enough to start. I'm willing to imagine without needing to know the how, without needing to see evidence, without needing to understand, with nothing. Just go imagine. And that is the absolute first step. And that is what's going to set the foundation for what comes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So awesome.
I've been having a lot of fun with this in my own life. And one of the things I was sharing with Cassie earlier about how fun it is, because a lot of, when Lisa and I are talking about things, she's has ideas that then add to mine and build to mine, and then it goes back and forth. And I find myself like dreaming bigger than I ever have before. And that it's so fun to co-create like that. But it got me re-inspired and retuned into the bigness and that level of like manifesting something beyond what I can imagine. Because I think I might have slipped into a little bit of like, well, this is easy and I just get what I want. And I didn't really like try, or I didn't really like consciously go bigger, because it just felt all so natural and I'm living everything I want. And so it feels really fun. And that's the other thing about this is when you go bigger than you can imagine, like you start to go to that place where you don't think is possible, it feels fun. That is one of the keys, I think. So when you're starting to imagine, and if it doesn't feel fun to you, if you don't feel excited by it, I'm just going to say you're likely already, without even being aware, tuned into how, or tuned into I can't have it. Because go ahead.
I have one more to add to that. What I think you're tuned into.
Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to add to that is that you're tuned into what you think you should want next.
Ooh, yeah.
Versus what do you actually want and what would be fun. Because so often when we get, certain things, often there's a programming that's like, oh, well, then I should want a bigger house, or I should want a different car. And that might not be at all what you want, right? What you might want is a camper to drive across the country.
And go visit your Manifest It Now hosts.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I was just going to add too, when we have a desire and a belief that don't match, then we're going to feel tension or stress or contradiction. So if you start to imagine and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a cottage on the water, and then because you don't have a belief that that's possible, so quickly you then notice like a feeling, like a tension inside you, that is because there's a misalignment. You don't believe you can get what you want. But what Cass and I are saying is just stay in the desire, just stay in the fun and the appreciation of the desire. That's the first step. That's almost, I don't want to say the only, but it's very important.
Yes.
Is staying in the energy. Think of something, go explore your imagination, think of something you want, and get to a place where that idea feels only fun, feels only exciting.
Right? And this is one of those places where I'm sure someone's thinking this because this just popped in my head. Oh, but then I would have to, right? So I'm just going to use, I'd love a house but then I'd have to clean another house. This is where you like, right?
I have totally thought about this. I'm like, oh, the house I want is really big. But I'm like, but I don't want to take care of that much space. I'm like, oh, Ginny.
Right? Oh, so there's someone to clean the house. It's always beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how you get back on track, right? Or get back to this exploration and this play instead of what's possible and what's not, or what you don't like is you stay in the play like, okay, I've had this big, beautiful house. I also have somebody to clean it. Mm-hmm. And I also have whatever else feels really good in that.
Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite things too, when we're in this part of manifesting and the dreaming part, and is staying away from any specifics that you don't feel clear about. Is like, when I think of having the big house and the big space and then all that yard to take care of, and I'm like, okay, instead of automatically going to, well, then you'd have to have a housekeeper, then you'd have to have a landscape crew, and then I'm like, that starts to feel too much too. So I just go right back to, oh, having a beautiful, clean, tidy house and yard feels amazing, and I just stay there because I know that staying there will bring the details in. And by the time I get there, those things will feel clear to me and will feel aligned and inspired. So yeah.
Yeah. I always like to, well, obviously, if I have that, I have this.
Yes.
If if it's anything. So sometimes I do like to, for me, I love the way you share, like I just come back to that. And sometimes I will do that. And sometimes I'll go, well, obviously, if I have this, in this case, this house, which I already have my dream house, but if I have this house, I also have this. If I have a vacation home, obviously it more than pays for itself. If I have this, like, obviously this is true. Yeah. And it's finding your feel good and what feels good to play. And like I said, some days it's that and some days it's something different. But it's how do I stay in the play?
Yes. I want to point out something really important. What Cass said is some days it's this and some days it's that. And I know that's very general, but there's no one way it has to be, meaning our desires are fluid, and what we're ready to imagine and dream about can be fluid too. And I remember one of my clients commenting that this was a breakthrough for her when she realized, and I know we do it different, but she scripted about different things, different times, at different days. And she's like, I just followed what I was inspired to script about, and it was so much more freeing. So playing with ideas, like maybe one day it feels great to think about having this cottage on the water. Another day it feels great to think about traveling around the world in a truck in an Airstream. And no, I'm not using my dreams or anything. And so I just think give yourself the permission to be fluid in what you're dreaming about too. So like releasing any judgment about, but last week I wanted this and now I want this. And if you are purely in the dream, the pure desire place, it doesn't matter what you're focused on. You're going to attract the next best thing for you on your path. So you can totally trust that.
And you can also stay open, because just because you get one thing or you have a new desire doesn't mean, you don't have to analyze it, but it also doesn't mean the other desire, like we don't just get one desire.
Yeah.
We don't just get to ask for like, well, I really want a house in the mountains, ski in, ski out. Like it doesn't mean that you can't also want a beach house.
Yes.
And that experience. And I think that, like, would you say number 2, like staying fluid with your desires is awesome?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I really liked what you said, like not judging, because so often, I don't know, there's just some overarching thing about changing your mind that somehow that's bad.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a lot of where that judgment comes from. But it's, no, I get to want what I want like every single day. It doesn't matter what it is. I get to want what I want. That's the core.
Yeah.
And then you kind of touched on this, but I want to put this as our number 3, is staying open to doing it differently, to getting there differently. So we touched on that with the this and the that. I say this to my clients all the time. Like the things that you did a year ago, even though you're in the same program, often look different. And we have to let go and embrace this new, this new way of doing it. And I think one way people get stuck, especially when they're going bigger than they imagine, is they try and, I have to do it this way because this way worked before.
Or because this is how I imagined it even.
Yeah.
I got stuck on that a whole bunch. But it was interesting. One of my clients was having this. She was working towards creating, like abundance, freedom, and doing something she loved and being creative. And so she thought it was going to come in one way where she was already trained and had, education, and she was kind of going down that path. And then one weekend, her and her husband, they were having fun together and doing this. And then an opportunity kind of fell into their lap. And they're like, oh, it was so exciting. And they talked about it was, more of a housing market thing. And she was like, I did not see this coming. But it's like, this feels exactly what I've been feeling into and asking for, the essence of it. She's like, I don't know where it's going to go, but that's exactly the example of how things show up differently than sometimes we plan them, but you still get the essence, and the experience will be as fulfilling for you when you stay open to how it unfolds.
Yes. So staying open to both the unfolding and the rigid details.
Yes.
Yeah, like don't fight. it seems like I started laughing because I think like we all say we wouldn't do this, but I see people do it. Like, don't not follow a feel good and an excitement because you think it's not on your way to the big thing.
Yeah.
All the feel good and the fun is on the way to that bigger than you can imagine. Like, it's not taking away from that. And if it is, like, there's a reason. But so often I think people will like start, because I think there's some overarching like brain training that goes on in society that says, like, I have to focus only on this thing, and if I don't focus on it 24/7, I won't get it, right? And that's not true. Like, you're gonna get lots of opportunities to play along the way and to explore, which is only gonna deepen what you can imagine and make how you get there easier.
Yeah. It like reminds me of what happened when I was just so inspired to go work on the camper. And I'm like, but I already knew. I'm like, oh, this is an important part of the unfolding. I have no idea how it's related, but all I know is that it's a part of it because it feels so freaking good and fun and inspired. So you gotta follow those feelings.
Absolutely.
Okay, so coming back to how do you manifest something bigger than you can imagine? I think one of the pieces that happens along this path is let it be okay that you have a desire that you don't know how to get there. Like that, it's almost like we want to find the desire that's big enough that your brain can't plan the how, because that is when you can't get stuck in the how.
Exactly. I mean, that's basically what my whole program is based on, right? Is getting you so far out that it's less easy to focus on the how.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And remember too, like if you feel fun, or if you feel excited and fun around whatever this imagined big dream and desire is, then source is with you on that. Like, you have guidance there. You have access to more the pathway to the unfolding when you feel excited, when you feel good about where you're going. And so the bigger the dream is, sometimes then you're accessing, or you're creating space to be supported more, in a way.
In a huge way.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, when we ask for those bigger things, we can get more support. And you're also, again, because it takes some of the how can I figure this out when it's so big, you're open more to allowing that support.
Yes.
Because you can't figure it out. And so you just have to follow, this feels good, this showed up. Yeah. Okay, I don't know how to do it. Let me go back to imagining it, which puts you in the space of having it instead of how to get there.
Yeah. Which, if you guys caught that, you are in the most productive energy for you to spend time in is in the having of it, not in the how do I get there of it.
Yes.
I think imagination is so like underplayed. I don't know. I think I've shared this once before on the podcast, but when I was first starting to get into LOA, I literally would just lay there and daydream, and it was like a regular part of my day, and it felt so good. I would do it in the morning and often in the afternoon. I actually wasn't doing it as a part of my manifesting practice. I was just doing it because I loved dreaming about these things, but I never attached anything to it. It was just fun. I still do that. I will like lay in bed. Lisa gets up early and I lay in bed and I dream about whatever I want to dream about. And it's just for the feeling of it and just for fun. And there is like immensely powerful energy in that process. But now don't go do it to make something happen, guys. Just do it for the fun of it. Yeah.
And I mean, that goes back, and I think there's a skill about presence in that, because one of the things I will hear from clients is like, but I want to be there now. And which means I think that we're not fully in that imagination and soaking up every single thing if we're immediately like, but I want it now.
Yes.
And so you want to give yourself that. It's about the enjoyment and the play that you get from it, not about getting there.
Yeah. And you have to be willing too, and this comes along many parts of just being a deliberate creator. You have to be willing to be in a space of something that hasn't physically manifested yet. That's the whole point of being deliberate and creating a different future is like, if we just believe what's happened, we're not creating new, we're just regurgitating, right? So be willing to be in your imagination is enough. You have to have that willingness to separate and say, yeah, even though this hasn't happened yet, still fun to think about. Doesn't matter if or when, that's not our job. Our job is to be in the energy of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorite things when I watch a client, because that usually happens about like the first month after they take the workshop. Mm-hmm. And by this, somewhere between the 2nd and the 6th month, they're like, oh my God, it just felt so good to be here. I just stayed here longer.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's where the magic is.
Yes, because then you're there just for the feeling of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the things I don't think I quite got to is that as you spend time dreaming, imagining, and letting yourself be there, spending the time there, you get more familiar with it. And then once you get closer to that vibrationally, experientially, then your like bubble of what's possible then expands more. So you're always going to have bigger and bigger and bigger, and that is perfect. That's it's an amazing way to manifest. So it's interesting because so much we enter into manifesting thinking like, I want to get that thing, but then we start to get into this and we really live it, and we're like, oh, I'm never going to get that everything I want because there's always more. And so finding that sweet spot of really enjoying the expansion of it. And so as we have that really big imagination, bigger than we can imagine, and then we start getting familiar with that experience through a number of different tools, like scripting is one of our biggest ones. And then we get familiar with that. By the time we're, say, like halfway familiar with that experience and it's already started to manifest and happen, now we're going to dream bigger. And so this is the cool thing. By the time you get to what you thought was big 5 years ago, it's like, oh yeah, this is, of course. Just like that's why Cassie talks about that. Of course I have this. Obviously I have this. Because that's how it feels when you get there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so good. The only thing I want to add is, if we're talking about like how to do it, is like to go get some of it. So if there's anything that you're like, okay, this is so big, I can't even imagine, if you just ask yourself, like, how could I touch it just a little bit? And what I mean by touch it is like, touch that reality, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's super interesting. And I remember this, I remember walking by the Four Seasons in the moment. I thought I could never live there, and I wouldn't even walk in the front door, which was so weird. Like, I don't know where I got this, but I remember my friend was like, let's go in there. I'm like, no, we don't belong. Like, we can't go in there. She's like, not even you. I'm like, not even me. And a couple years later, right, when I'm like this is what I want, right? I'm walking by, I'm going in, I'm cutting through the lobby, like I am, going to the spot, like finding a way to touch it. And so there's always, we put it off. Like, once we have something that's so big that we imagine, what we do is we put it off. But if we can just go get a little taste, even if it takes a little bit of an investment or it takes some time or whatever it is, if we can find a taste of that, that speeds it up, because then you have it in your experience as well as your imagination.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've been playing with that, like just living, we live in a really wealthy area. There's pockets of a lot of wealth around here. And so I've been watching my own relationship with, driving by these multi-million-dollar houses change. Because nothing like threatens me or anything. I'm like, that's cool, but I don't feel connected to it in any way. And I'm like, nah, that's not what I want. Clearly, I want one in the forest. But I still am watching how I'm like, oh, and I'm starting to connect with having an experience at that level. And so that's kind of like what you're saying. Put yourself in that. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so cool.
That's fun. Anything else you want to wrap up with? How to manifest bigger than you can imagine?
I think we covered it all. Like, first I'll ask for something bigger than you can imagine.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay open to it. Let your ideas be fluid, and stay in the feeling of it, and choose something that is way beyond what you can how.
Yes, that's the key.
Yeah. Awesome. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Go be awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.